Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson.
And I'm Pete Lane. Jeffrey, we have a wonderful product we want to talk about today. We could refer to this product as QR codes on steroids. What do you think?
You know, when Dr. Calvin Roberts from Lighthouse Guild gave us that little demo that we had in our podcast with him, it was like interesting. And the way he described it really seemed revolutionary in a sense that 160-degree angles can be picked up, like if you're going down a hallway. We'll talk about this in this interview, but we just want to make it clear that this is something that may revolutionize how we navigate indoors a little bit, even outdoors, and from a distance of 40 to 60 feet, depending on the size of these NaviLens.
Exactly. The gentleman that we're about to hear from, Javier Pita, talked about the size of these QR codes. NaviLens tags is what he refers to them as, and you can print them on your home printer. There's multiple uses for these things. You can have home use tags, and you can populate them with information that you want. You can customize them around your house. For example, Jeff, you were talking to him about your album collection. You've got an LP vinyl collection. It was a wonderful use application for these QR code tags.
Exactly. The list goes on. The more we talk in this interview, and you probably as a listener too will hear, ideas are going to pop into your head how you can utilize these. They're, like you said, on steroids, QR codes, but they also use color. So if you have a color printer, you can print them off yourself in a group of 4, cut them up, identify them into your app. It's a free app for iOS or Android. Download it. If you have a color printer, you can print them, create your own databases, whatever you want to do with them. The list goes on, and the more and more I hear about it throughout this podcast, the list kept growing in my head.
Same with me. It's a remarkable product. And I don't think we highlight products that often, Jeffrey, where we end up believers. And I think we both came out of this interview understanding what the possibilities and potential are for this code. Now, let me just reiterate, because you mentioned it, but I want to highlight this. These are codes that can be seen by your phone camera up to 60 feet away and even farther away if you have a need for it. But they can be used for outdoor navigation. You'll hear about uses for bus stops and things like that. They can be used for indoor navigation. So as we were just talking about, for home use, you just print these things off your printer. They're free. And then you can just populate them with whatever you want. And you can label your food in your pantry. You can label those frozen containers in your fridge. You can label your clothing. You can label your medications. The sky is the limit on this. This is just a remarkable product. And I don't think I could say that enough.
And some of the links that they have done, like at bus stations or at a bus stop, it's real time. So bus arrives in 20 minutes, or something of that nature. It's not like it's lock, stock, and barrel just at a certain time or anything. It can link to certain services. It's wide open. So until I get bored with it or whatever, I mean, data input can be interesting, but it seems like something that is more usable than, always having to label something and marking it specifically. Here, you walk into a building and you could have the whole entire building, all the rooms labeled on there. And then as you go about, you can navigate by picking up another code or something, wear it as a lanyard, and it'll give you directional left, right, even sound left, right. So I think these are the first baby steps that this app, the free app, is doing for you, whether you're on iOS or Android. I would suggest downloading it, printing off a couple, and just see where you can go with it, because someday maybe your bus stop, your cities, your building, some convention or something will utilize this and will only be kind of shocked at how useful it can be.
I agree. I think there's a couple of points that Jeff and I want you to come out of this interview and this podcast with. Number one, that these are things that we could use, you can use in your day-to-day activities. And number two, maybe you can advocate around your town, your transit system, your transportation system, your buses, your trains, things along those lines, and start plugging these things. We have no financial investment in this. We're not in this for any gain. We are just finding ourselves to be pretty strong believers in this product. So take that away from this interview, and we certainly hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. And you'll enjoy it too, because once I get my whole vinyl record album index and you come visit, I can share everything. You make you a friend or whatever, and you will have access to my NaviLens markers that I use in my area. So that's pretty cool.
I can't wait. I want to read the song lists, the track lists on each album, and maybe a little bit of the jacket, the sleeve from the album.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. You can do whatever you want. You can populate these things with however little or however much you want.
Here we're talking about, again, I just thought, why not link to my playlist? If you pull out the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album, pick up the NaviLens right there, and all of a sudden my playlist goes right into your device. I think it's endless. I think more and more people that get this are going to be discovering new ways they can use it. So there you go.
Yeah. Again, if you heard the interview that we did with Calvin Roberts of the Lighthouse Guild a few weeks ago, you got a little bit of a hint about what this product is. Well, this fills in the details. Without further ado, I think, Jeffrey, let's meet our guest, Javier Pita, who is the CEO and founder of NaviLens. You can find more about NaviLens at navilens.com. That's N as in Nancy, A, V as in Victor, I, capital LENS.com. Good morning, Javier. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. Greetings from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, here in this beautiful Spain, Europe.
Yes, you are in Barcelona, Spain, are you?
Not in Barcelona, in the south, in Murcia, between Alicante and Andalusia, okay? But close to Barcelona as well.
Good.
Oh, that's great. Javier, we have a lot of listeners who are transition age students in schools and stuff, and we heard about the Wisconsin School for the Blind and their case use for developing a school kit. You also have home kit. Now, NaviLens, it's something that's been around for a little while. You've been working and developing it. Can you tell us what NaviLens is?
Okay, of course. NaviLens is like a new kind of QR code that can be read from a very long distance without focusing at 60 feet far away. It's like visual braille that can be easily read with any camera of the mobile phones without knowing exactly where it is. And this is very important. And of course, without touch it. That is very important as well in this situation. NaviLens gives the user not only the distance, but the exact direction to the element where the NaviLens code is. NaviLens was created after 5 years of intense research and development between NaviLens and the University of Alicante here in Spain. And the NaviLens code are being incorporated rapidly in cities around the world to make more accessible any space like bus stops, bus terminals, train stations, museums, hospitals. And of course, in venues like schools, college, and something like that. We can talk more about the use cases in a moment.
Yes, and we did interview Dr. Calvin Roberts from the Lighthouse Guild in New York City. He described the use case scenario where you are partnering with the New York City Transit Authority to use the NaviLens tag on one of their bus stops, which was actually what got us connected with your product and initiated this interview. But Javier, you say 60 feet is the distance up to which the tag can be detected by your smartphone camera. This is a very, very long distance. And of course, the angle does not have to be a very direct look from your camera. How does the technology accomplish that?
Yes, very good question. I love that. The thing is, when we begin with this project in 2012, we started to think how to make a new kind of QR code that could be read by a visually impaired people without knowing exactly what it is. And in the beginning of the project, we thought QR codes. QR codes are an incredible invention from Denso Wave, a Japanese company. I don't know if you know that the QR code was created in 1996, like 25 years ago. So the problem with the QR code is that it was invented last century, and the QR code used black and white. It's like the dots. It itself, the QR code can add a black point, that means 1, like a computer, or white nothing, that is a 0. Okay, 1 and 0 is the base of computer systems. So the point is that kind of codification is very difficult, because if you store more information than the QR code, it's becoming more and more difficult to read it by the camera of the mobile phone, because the dots are smaller and it's not possible to read as well. Okay, we thought, why don't you use colors instead of using only black and white? And why don't you use different colors like magenta, cyan, yellow, and black, contrast colors between them? So using the colors in the NaviLens code allows us to make the cells bigger. And doing that, we achieve that the code can be read from a very long distance. The distance depends on the size of the code. When we say that the code can be read up 60 feet far away, we are considering the code in a 20 centimeters piece of paper. So it's like a standard A4 paper. So if you do bigger, and for example, in the New York subway, there is NaviLens code of 10 inches that can be read like 80 feet far away. So depending on the size, the code can be read further. So the point is, we specifically created this code thinking about the problem. The problem to create a new kind of code that could be read by a visually impaired without need to know exactly where the code is. And it was like 5 years of very intense research work between us and the University of Alicante. After these 5 years, we achieve something incredible, not only from the distance, the incredible distance that you can read the NaviLens code, the angle. The angle is key because the QR code needs to scan in front of them. First, you need to know where exactly is the QR code. And then you need to scan in front of the code. That is something that for the sighted users is not so comfortable because sometimes it's slow. You read the QR code very slowly. You need to focus on something like that. But with the design of the NaviLens code, we achieve 160 degrees angle to read. This is an incredible figure. Indeed, it's like being in the limits of the capability of the eyes in order to see the code. If you get an NaviLens code and move around, you will be able to read 160 degrees in each angle, in the X and the I. And another very interesting thing about the NaviLens code is that requires a very low amount of light. That means that it's not needed to be illuminated, to have light in order to read it. And there are great advantages from the technical side.
Yes, they are. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it's a perfect situation like at a school or if you're at a business and you're walking down the hall, it would be able to pick up as you approach because you are at quite an angle to the door until you get to it, but it would be able to pick up these codes as you go. What about the case where, say there's 5 rooms in a row as you're approaching? Will it pick up the closest one? Will it let you know which one's closest?
Very good question as well, okay? Another feature of the NaviLens is that we can get more than 200 codes in the same frame. Imagine, okay? 200 codes at the same time with a mobile phone.
You could do a phone book.
Yes, of course. So the point is, imagine, for example, this situation. An user wants to go to the toilet and close to the toilet, there is the male toilet and the female toilet. In this situation, both doors are very close. Okay, the male and the female or the female and the male. Okay, so the point is, yes, NaviLens will read 2 codes simultaneously. Sorry for my pronunciation. The NaviLens code will inform that there are 2 codes and will inform to the user what the most centered is. So if the user is seen with the camera of the mobile phone in the direction to the female toilet, they will inform female toilet 1 of 2. Okay. And if the user moves slightly the camera to the other side, we'll hear a click. And the click indicates a new code in the field of view of the camera of the mobile phone and will read male toilet. Okay. And the incredible thing is that this is working super fast, super seamlessly, and imitating what the sighted people do when they are reading the signage, the male signage, the female signage. Okay. So always the user can decide what to read and will notice about how many codes are in the field of view of the camera of the mobile phone.
That's great. I'm envisioning, Javier, going into a grocery store here in the States, a large supermarket, and I'm looking for rice. So I enter the store and I bring my smartphone camera out. If the store subscribes to NaviLens and there are multiple products that will be labeled with your tags, what would I hear, for example?
Okay, very good question. And this is not only a problem for the visual impaired community. This is a problem for everybody. When one person attends a grocery store, it's like impossible in order to locate where the products are inside the grocery store, okay?
Right.
So the point is, the NaviLens code originally was created to make signage visible for the visual impaired. We are applying the NaviLens code outdoors and indoors. Later, we can talk about the outdoor application, like in the bus stops or something like that, and in the inaccuracy of the GPS. But indoors, the problem is that we don't have GPS. But all the store, all the groceries, all the train station, all the subway station has signs, okay, that indicate the direction to achieve one destination inside that space. For example, in the USA, all buildings has the exit sign in red. So the mission of the NaviLens was, okay, why don't make this visible for the visual impaired community? So in the example that you have said, the grocery has some signage that is telling about different items, about, for example, rice, about desserts, different kind of stuff that you can find in the grocery. So the point is, first, adding the NaviLens code in each of that signage, the user can easily read the content of the signage and decide what islet to go to get something. And later, the product. You are in front of the shop and there is like hundreds of products. The NaviLens code can be read from a very long distance. In this case, it's that distance like 2 meters, 3 meters. Sorry, I always talk about meters and I try to change to imperial. So imagine something like between 10 and 15 feet far away. With this capability of read all the codes, the user can filter what they are looking for. So they can filter, okay, I would like to buy a Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. And filtering them, NaviLens could indicate the user where exactly is the code or not the other 200 codes in the field of vision. This is super interesting. And in fact, we are in the way in order to make the steps in order to achieve it. Why? Because recently we have launched in the UK with the RNEB, the Visual Impaired Association in the UK, the first food package accessible with the NaviLens technology. And what does that mean? The package, in this case, the Kellogg's Cocoa Pops, that is incredible, the amount of information that a single food package has. So Kellogg's added a NaviLens code. That in the same way that the Kellogg's added, for example, a barcode in order to the cash machine to check out, they added the NaviLens code in the Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. They printed in all the Kellogg's Cocoa Pops that they launched with this project. And imagine what easy is to create the packages more accessible, because in the end, it's only to add the code. Because this code can be read far away without focusing, without need to enframe it. Imagine the result if all the package in the world has this kind of technology. So doing that, NaviLens could help, because in the end, NaviLens is the last inches super accuracy that in some use cases is needed to achieve a more inclusive world for everybody.
Javier, I have a question. I know from this code, you could actually go to links to get more information, but how much information can one code handle?
Very interesting question as well. The NaviLens code is like a trailer. Internally, it's an ID number. All the information is stored in a combination between the cloud and the mobile phone in the situation that, for example, there is not coverage available, cell coverage, okay? So the point is, and this is the good use case, for example, talking about the bus stops, okay? So for example, when a user is outdoors, the thing is, we can store as much information as we want, and we can connect the code with real-time web services that make visible digital displays. So for example, in the bus stops, we are not only storing the name of the bus stop and storing the number of the bus stop. We are connecting the bus stop to the web service of the transit agency to inform the users when the next bus is going to stop there.
That would transfer to trains and any other thing. It's real time.
Yes.
You got the location.
Yes.
Hey, there you go. That's sweet. That's nice.
Let me ask a question before we move on, Javier. Who determines what information is available through those accesses? Do you work in partnership with the customer to do that, or does it open it up to the World Wide Web?
Very good question. In the same way that the signage is the owner of the facility or the owner of the service who decides what information to offer to the users. In the same way that, for example, a bus stop, if they put a digital panel with the next buses that is coming, they decide for sighted people that this is the kind of information that they want to deliver to the users. So in this case, it's the same owner that decides what information delivered to the users. And this is very interesting, okay, because NaviLens is a cloud platform. It's like a technology platform. The customer can create, edit the information, can link the information with the external database, and very important, can update the information at any time without replace the NaviLens code. So imagine, for example, that there's a parade in a street, and the bus is not going to stop there. The transit agency can automatically update all the codes of that particular street to inform to the users, hey, the bus is diverting to do this, something like that. Okay. So the point is, the incredible thing is that the NaviLens technology is like signage technology, but can be dynamically updated remotely. And imagine the possibilities for the community. And in the end, using a piece of paper or piece of vinyl, incorporated, added to the current signage. It's a very, very, very powerful concept. Indeed, the good thing about this is that we can deliver better information for the visually impaired people than the people that can see. Okay, because physical signage plus cloud technology, combining them, we don't have a static signage as the people that can see observe when they are in front of a bus stop, or in front of, for example, a subway station, okay, or in front of any kind of facility. The transit agency can update information, and this empowered information for the visually impaired.
Javier, while you're talking there, a case scenario was developing in my brain. I was thinking, take a convention where you're going to have 3,000 people show up, and there's a hotel and there's restaurants. It would be really neat that the producers could send out a sheet and you could scan a thing and they could have the whole hotel mapped out in a sense, describing the hotel. Then there could be restaurants with their menus, and the whole thing could be on one sheet where you could then choose to intake all that data, all that information. That's even before you get there. So you have a good concept of what you're entering. And then since you located these restaurants that are in the hotel, could you use that as a beacon if you chose to go to those places?
Very, very good concept. Yes, because in the end, for example, the owner of that facility or the convention or the hotel or the restaurant, okay, can send previously or publish in the website their code, the NaviLens codes, and the users can read the codes in advance to know previously what is going to have when they will to the space. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that this is simple because in the end, the NaviLens code is like a digital code that can be reproduced and sent to the users very easily. So for that, it will be great. And indeed, for example, that you are talking about conventions, the first space where we implemented this technology was with the National Association of the Blind here in Spain, that is called ONCE, O-N-C-E, that is very, very powerful, very big organization here in Spain. The first place was a convention center with a trade show for visual impaired technology. And imagine the difficulties attending this kind of space that are new, that has a lot of booths, a lot of stands. Do you know how difficult it was to make more accessible this trade expo, this trade show? As simple as adding a NaviLens code in each booth. So printing an A4 standard paper telling about, for example, this is the Samsung booth. Okay, and indeed, I have here a photo, okay, and in my computer, and I can reproduce the same feeling, okay, that the users. And hear this, please. So I'm opening NaviLens, okay?
19 feet away, Samsung, booth 24. 15 feet.
Okay, so the thing is as simple as that, as adding the NaviLens code in each booth, we made this accessible. That is the power of NaviLens. In the end, it's like a signage. The signage is present everywhere. Why don't add a NaviLens code in each signage in order to create more inclusive space?
You're available on iOS and on Android. I think that's pretty neat. Sometimes you see some of these apps, even some from huge companies, just coming out on one or the other, but you got a plan to serve both of them.
From the beginning, it was like mandatory for us, okay? If we want to create a more inclusive world and use the NaviLens code as like universal signage, in the same way that the exit sign is present everywhere in the United States, in any building, it has no sense that we only apply this new technology for a part of the population, having iOS or having Android. For us, this is like, oh my God, this is not possible to do. So from the beginning, we launched the NaviLens technology simultaneously in Android and iPhone device, of course. And indeed, we don't understand other way. For us, in some case, there are like a little difference, okay? But in the end, if you adapt that little difference, you are working for the users. And I think that is very important to be present in both platforms because the user is needed to access to the information having an iOS or having Android or having any mobile phone that they have or any featured device that will appear on the market. For example, glasses with cameras in the clothes, something like that. For us, this was mandatory from the beginning.
That makes perfect sense because inclusive means inclusive and does not exclude any particular platform. Javier, I had a question back on the tech side. You are a cloud-based provider. Have you had any connectivity difficulties with users in any scenarios? Describe a little bit about how the connectivity works and whether you are reliable.
99.
Is that right?
A lot of nines. We are using an incredible piece of technology made in USA called Amazon Web Services, AWS, and Google Cloud, Google Firebase, okay? Incredible platforms, incredible technology. And we can deserve a 99, 9999, a lot of nines, okay? I believe this is not a problem. And indeed, we have designed, so we never had a blackout, never. From the beginning of the launch of the project, it was like in 2017. We can deliver information links to the NaviLens code and make available for the users offline without cell coverage. This, for example, is very important in the subways because sometimes in the subways you don't have cell coverage.
Right.
Obviously, we cannot make miracles. So in that case, we only can give the users the static information. Like, for example, this is an elevator, or this stair is going to the platform, or this is going to the exit, something like that. We cannot deliver, for example, that the next train is in to JFK in 3 minutes, far away, something like that. But yes, we have designed a cloud system, replicated system with the best cloud technology in the world, very, very reliable as well.
You know, Javier, you really got me thinking here the more I'm on this podcast. Here's another case scenario. I collect record vinyl albums, and they're organized in boxes, and I probably have 20 of them, probably over 1,000. So if I went through...
Wow,
he's a vinyl geek.
Oh. So when I pull out an album, I can get the title if I ask someone, but I don't want them to read everything. I could actually label the box. I'd know which album's where. Or I could do an index.
Yes.
But I could also put a tag on a particular sleeve that's over covering, protecting the album cover, scan that, and get the information that's on that album if I put it all in there. Like I could go find it and just cut and paste it and put it into the tag. Is that possible?
Yes, and for free, of course. We are trying to that the NaviLens code will be available in as many places as we can, like bus stops, the transit agencies, because it's very important for the mobility of the community, something like that. But any users that can hear us, and you, of course, can download inside the NaviLens app that we call personal NaviLens code, domestic NaviLens code. And what is that? That are codes that any user can download inside the app. The user can receive by email. The user can print. The user can cut and apply very different sizes depending on the use case that you want to achieve. It's not the same to that kind of classification of your disks or another kind of use cases. The thing is, you have like a blank tags without any information. And when you read the NaviLens code with your mobile phone, the NaviLens app will tell you this is empty, and you can record any information that you want. You write any information in the code, and when you read again, you will have access to that information. And the good thing is that imagine that you, Jeff, invite Pete to your house, and you want that Pete will be able to access to that information that is yours, and it's only yours. We have launched a new thing that is called NaviLens Family and Friends, and you can invite Pete to access the information that you have stored in your NaviLens personal codes. And when Pete leaves your house, you can say, okay, not more. Okay, and you can say, I don't want to share again. So you can do all of these things with the blank personal tags. Indeed, this is one functionality that is being used a lot by the visual impaired community. The users are tagging CDs, DVDs, important paperwork, boxes, clothes, things in the cupboard like white beans, rice, kitchen spices, so something like that. Because imagine, okay, what is the food that you put in the Tupperware, and you live with another person, and in order to access to the same information.
So I could actually sit down and review Jeff's vinyl record collection. I could sit with my phone and go to the third box, and I could see which records are in there, and then I could pull out a particular record, read the entire album cover or sleeve from that record, and know exactly what the group is and what the selection of songs is and what the background notes are and all of that.
Making a lot of work for me there, Pete. A lot of high expectation. This is really something, because I've always tried to organize that, but it's always separate from me flipping to the albums. Now, if I go through the process of labeling these, I can then flip through and find it just as fast as it pops up on the NaviLens app.
Yeah, what possibilities?
Yes, a lot. You can do it, Pete, if Jeff allows you.
So I better be nice to him.
Yes, of course.
One other thing that I was thinking about when I saw the school kit, and, you know, I understand labeling a school, that all schools could do this or however they want to do it. What I was thinking is, you know, a teacher could hand out assignments by handing you a little QR super code, and all you do is scan it and you got your assignments. It's a way of transferring information, triggering access to information for anything that you can imagine. I better make this podcast a little shorter because my mind is racing.
Mine too.
Yes, indeed, it's like a communication link, okay, between, for example, the teacher and the student, okay? In that particular use case, imagine that you put near the billboard a NaviLens code, and the students can read the code and the teacher can modify the information. Right now, in order to explain the difference between the difference of the codes, there are three kinds of experience with the NaviLens code. So the first one is the domestic experience, okay, in order that any user can download for free the NaviLens code and use them for anything that we have commented. The second thing is the free kits. Like, for example, the school kit is a very, very powerful tool in order to make the spaces in a school more accessible. So things like male toilet, female toilet, okay, principal office, something like that, okay. This code has the difference with the blank code, the domestic codes. Those codes are pre-recorded with standard information that you can find in a school, like, for example, male toilet, female toilet, something like that. And the third one is the professional account, the account that the owner of the facility, that could be a school, a subway, a hospital, a mall, okay, they can create codes and use in its own facilities. Like, for example, could be a classroom, and it's possible to change the information remotely in the cloud platform. And so imagine the possibilities are endless with this kind of technology.
That's really impressive. How many possibilities with your code is there?
The thing is, we are discovering them. For example, the Kellogg's Cocoa Pops, they make it more accessible. The packages are the Kellogg's Cocoa Pops was something like very recently in the last 6 months, okay? And for example, here in Europe, all the train stations has tactile paving. Do you have in USA?
Yes. You're talking about the sidewalks and the platforms and the footing, right?
Yes, but not only the border of the platform. I mean the tactile paving from the entrance to the platform. So, for example, in Japan, the country that invented the tactile paving or 10G blocks, the tactile paving is present everywhere at the street as well. It's incredible. It's an incredible country with a lot of support for the visual impaired community. The point is, the tactile paving, that is an incredible invention. I don't know if you have talked about this in your program, but I recommend you that talk because it's very, very interesting. Indeed, we have created a website that is called 10gblocks.com, 10gblocks.com, in order to make a tribute to the Japanese inventor Seiji Miyake, that was the inventor of the tactile paving in the 60s, okay, the last century, to help a friend that was becoming blind. So the point is, tactile paving is incredible, okay, because an user can guide through the tactile paving and reach the destination. But the problem is when, again, the same problem that we try to solve. When the user is in a known space that they didn't have memorized, that they didn't know, the problem is how to get the correct direction, the right direction, to go to the right or go to the left in one intersection. So the thing is, tactile paving is very helpful, but the user must know if turning right is going to achieve the platform number 1 and turning left the platform number 2. So the point is, we have improved the concept of the tactile paving because the NaviLens code can be read super quick, super far away. And adding the NaviLens code on the floor in the tactile paving, in the decision point, we can deliver the user that in a new space, an unknown space, we can tell the user, what destination do you want? Okay, platform number 1 to the right. And as simple as adding the NaviLens code in each intersection in the tactile paving, we can make like a signage for the tactile paving in order to guide the visual impaired in any unknown space with tactile paving. That is impressive. And this, for example, was one of the new uses that we discovered, and we apply here in Spain in the biggest train station, high-speed velocity station in Madrid.
How is the code embedded in the pavement? Is it replaceable? Is it updatable? Or is it a permanent fixture?
Indeed, when we added to Atocha, the provider used a very resistant vinyl, okay, because in signage is all invented, okay? And in that particular station, I think that, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of persons go monthly and it's going through this vinyl. And the vinyl is like perfect. The code is being reading super well, okay? And it's very resilient. So the point is, using a vinyl that is as simple as to add to the floor, we can guide a visual impaired user autonomously and with all the advantage of the Navi technology. Not only telling, okay, go turn right, turn left, informing about next train to Barcelona is going to depart in 30 minutes or something like that. Any information in the equivalent way that the NaviLens got.
Javier, could you tell me, can this be used for like wayfinding? Because if I've been to some place and I want to get to somewhere further away, like to the train, but I just got into a building and I got to go through some other places, could I pick it up and say that's where I want to go? And then since you have some tags available, would they be able to assist me to get to a destination for like wayfinding?
The wayfinding is a combination between know exactly where you are and where you want to go. NaviLens acts like a wayfinding because it's informing to the users with the information of the signage. When you enter a station, you first have the entrance, and the entrance informs you that you are going to access to any line. Okay, so imagine in New York the ACF lines. Okay, so when you go down, you are going to have a signage telling you to the right path for direction to the airport, to the left direction to Manhattan, or something like that. Okay, the same technology that the sighted people use, using the signage, we offer with the technology. It's contextualized information and have exactly the content of the signage. The relative position between you and the signage. You are seeing the signage in front, the system is going to tell you turn right. If you are seeing the signage in the other side, the signage is telling you turn to the left instead of the right. Okay, this is Wayfinding system. When the station has tactile paving, you can select the destination. And selecting the destination, okay, with the tactile paving, from the beginning you can say, okay, I want to reach the platform number 1. And the system, when they have a NaviLens code in each intersections, is going to tell you right, straight, left, come back, any instructions, okay, in order to reach that destination. Because right or left or go straight is something that is clear, because you are going to take another tactile paving segment. In order to achieve in a very big space the ability to give the accuracy that a visually impaired person needs, especially totally blind, we are going to launch something new that is called NaviLens 360 Vision with the same code. And this is a very cool feature. NaviLens 360 Vision is like a visual position system. With the NaviLens 360 Vision, we can know exactly in the space where is the code with an incredible accuracy, inches. Okay, we are not moving in feet accuracy, we are moving in inches accuracy. Yes. So the point, if you try NaviLens, you are going to receive the information exactly with the distance with the code in inches. Well, in feet, if you are like 30 or 20 feet far away, okay? But if you are very close, you are going to hear inches. With the NaviLens 360 Vision, we can know exactly where the code is, where the user is, and measure the relative movement of the user through the inputs of the camera of their mobile phone. Because to guide the user inside a big space without having a reference, like the tactile paving, in order to achieve a super reliable system, we need to guide the user to one specific point into the space. And the most important thing, that particular point in the space don't change if there are more people in the station or less people at the station, or it's happened like 1 year since the last recalibration of the environment, something like that, okay? So with that technology, we will allow to make another step and evolutionate NaviLens as a signage, a digital brand that has dynamic information through an incredible accurate system in order to guide the users to go each place where they want to go.
Javier, how would you describe a person using their phone while they're scanning these tags? Would they have it on a lanyard on their chest? Would they have it in their hand? What case have you found works best?
The users use NaviLens in a lot of ways. Our recommendation is, first, in order to be familiarized with the technology in the house, okay, in order with the NaviLens personal codes or something like that. And when the user is outside, our recommendation is hold the mobile phone over the chest. That is good for many reasons. First, because if you put the mobile phone over the chest, when the system is going to tell something like right or left or something like that, it will be the information between the camera and the code. And as the mobile phone is over the chest, will be the direction in relation to the body of the person. If you hold the mobile phone in your hand, okay, and you are pointing, for example, 30 grades to the right, the indication could be a little more difficult in order to understand. So holding over the chest, obtain the right information, because the information is relative to the camera of the mobile phone. The second thing is that over the chest, okay, you are going to have protected in your body. They don't have it like outside. Another kind of use, you can indeed use the mobile phone in your pocket with the camera outside. And we have a free hands mode that the user can use NaviLens without holding it. And indeed, if they want, for example, to stop scanning, they only need to block the camera with the hand, like blocking the eyes, okay, of a person. And in that moment, like 1 second or 2 seconds, holding the mobile phone over the camera, the system will stop. And if you make a little shake, the system will resume the scanning process. Okay, so many ways in order to use. And the thing is, and this is very important, we designed the NaviLens app in order to be used with only one hand, because the other hand is, of course, with a wet cane or a guide dog. Indeed, NaviLens doesn't detect obstacles, okay, obviously. So it's important to use NaviLens with a wet cane or a guide dog, of course. But the point is, holding with only one hand was the design. And the user can shake smoothly, not very aggressive, okay, smoothly. Doing that gesture, the user can start or stop or repeat the information that they have achieved with the last NaviLens code that they have read. But answering your question, our advice is holding over the chest.
Javier, I had a question about the NaviLens 360 vision. You described a situation where you're in a large space and the tag would help direct you back to the space if you say we're headed across the room and you got off track. Exactly how will NaviLens communicate with the user in those scenarios?
Let's demonstrate how NaviLens works right now without NaviLens 360 vision, okay? So I have in a bus stop, in this case in MTA, okay? The bus stop in Manhattan, in New York, in the 23rd Street. I'm going to read a code and please heard, okay?
16 feet away, bus stop East 23rd Street, Broadway. Next arrivals, the next bus M23 SBS to Chelsea Piers 12 AV is at the stop in 4 minutes. 20 feet, 15 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet.
Okay. Have you heard the information about that sounds, okay, are indicating to the user where exactly is the code in relation with the camera. And you have heard not only what is that is the bus stop calling Chelsea Piers, 23rd Street and Broadway, and you have heard the real-time information. Indeed, there was a bus stopping right now at the bus stop, ready to depart. This is the traditional NaviLens technology. But with the NaviLens 360 vision, we achieve that even if the user, the NaviLens code in the bus stop in the 23rd Street can be read 40 feet far away. That is more than the GPS error that is around 20, 25 feet. When we introduce the NaviLens 360 new feature, we can position it or locate the code into the space and the relation between the user and the space. This is a problem. How to communicate this for a visual impaired, okay? We cannot show the augmented reality arrows on the screen or something like that, okay? Another point, a very important thing. Right now, NaviLens Go offers the functionality for low vision users that can see the arrows, okay? But I'm referring to the use case of blind people, okay? So the thing is, how to achieve that? With the NaviLens 360 vision, we have a couple of technologies in relation with 3D sound. We position it, we locate the next step with a double system. In the background, the user will hear drums that is telling in a 3D where the code is. So for example, if I'm moving to the right and the code is on the left and more in the left, something like that, the drums will come from the left. And when the code is in front of the camera, a bell or different sound that the user can configure inside the NaviLens 360 vision will hear, in order to know exactly what is the position of the NaviLens code. That, for example, for the bus stop is super useful, in particular for the bus poles, because you know in the USA, for example, you are super practical and you put a bus stop everywhere, for example, in a street light or in another pole, it's like impossible even to know exactly. Yes.
Right.
Imagine the difficulty to know if they are exactly in the bus pole or is in the street light or is in the school bus pole or I don't know. Okay. So the point is with that, we can solve the last few jazz problems with that problem. Okay. But the point is, in the example that you talked about in the beginning of the interview about the grocery store, and I want to locate an item in the shelter, with the combination between the background in drums and the ring, the users can know exactly where the element is with an incredible precision. And indeed, I'm going to make you a demonstration right now, again, with the bus stop in New York, in Manhattan with the MTA, okay? So I'm going to open NaviLens. This is new functionality that is not yet available. We are going to launch in the next month, but I would like to introduce here in your program. When the user receives a code like this, okay, I'm
activating 360 vision. Lock code 3 meters away. Bus stop.
Are you hearing the drums? Yes.
Yes.
And
that's the drum sound.
The drum sound. And if move to another place.
5 meters. 7 meters. 5 meters, 3 meters. 6 centimeters away. Bus stop East 23 Street Broadway. Next arrivals, the next M23 SBS bus to Chelsea Piers 1280 is 5 minutes away and 17 minutes.
Did you
Bus
hear
stop
that?
East Street-
The thing is, at the beginning, I read the code. After that, I go farther to the code. I was like a little bit lost. After that, I pointed with the mobile phone using the drum sounds and the bell sounds as well, okay, in order to know exactly where the bus stop is. And when I approach the bus stop at 1 meter, sorry for in this version I have in the metric system, but the user will hear in feet, of course. And at 1 meter, that is something like 4 feet far away, the system say, okay, you have arrived with the sound, and we'll announce the real-time information of that particular use, okay? So this is amazing. This is something that we are working for the last 2.5 years and will be the next level of the NaviLens technology. And of course, will be compatible with all the codes that are on the streets. Barcelona, in Madrid, in New York, in Los Angeles, in the Wisconsin school, any place with the NaviLens technology. It's a cool technology. It's incredible.
So if I'm veering off to the left, will those sounds be in my left or right ear if I have headphones on?
Yes, in the drums will be in your left. And if you point again to the center, where exactly is the code? And the code is a bus stop, or a bus platform, or an elevator, or a Kelos Coco Pops, okay, or anything with the NaviLens code, you will hear a bell. But always you will have the information about where is located the code with a 3D positioned sound using earbuds like bone conductive earpods, something like that.
In stereo, right.
In stereo and more than stereo. Indeed, this is super cool, in order that you can try. The user can define how they want to hear the sounds, okay, with the NaviLens 360 vision. Indeed, there is a technology that is called, let me see, this is something completely new. You are having like a breaking news here in your program. It's called HRTF. That is an algorithm in order to locate exactly the code. And when you are familiarized with that, you will hear the position of the code in your brain. And this is like augmented reality for the visual impaired community. And we are super excited about this new step.
Just to confirm, when I'm headed straight on, I hear the bell. That means I'm not left or right. I'm right on.
Yes.
Perfect.
When the bell, you are straight.
Yeah.
And not only straight, you are pointing to the code. Because, for example, the code can be up or down, okay? The precision that we can offer is beyond the current status of the technology. Because you know not only the direction, where exactly is the code. And this is amazing.
Yeah, if I hear the sound coming on my right, I turn right into it, and then I'll hear the bell if I'm straight on.
Yes.
There you go.
And if you lost the code, okay, because right now, the NaviLens is working because it's seeing the code. And if you lost the code, you are not seeing where the code is in the current NaviLens, okay? But the NaviLens is working super well that you can detect the code something like 60 feet far away without any problem. With this technology, you don't need to still see the code. If you are seeing to other area, okay, with your mobile phone, the system will know exactly where are you looking for, what is your translation, where you are, and what is the position of the code. And this is the technology that will allow the user to locate a lot of products in a supermarket.
I think this is awesome.
I'm excited too. You are very excited, Javier, as are we.
Yes, indeed. For us, the most important thing is that this technology will be useful for the user, okay? And we are working very hard with a lot of passion. All the team of the NaviLens team is working so hard to make this very beneficial for the users. Indeed, you heard about the other day, the interview for Dr. Calvin Roberts, CEO of the Lighthouse Guild.
Yes.
Okay, we are working very close with them. We are very excited to work with Dr. Calvin Roberts. We want to create something that will be useful for the users. And we think that we achieved something that is simple and at the same time super powerful for the users and very scalable and sustainable. And this is very important because if you offer a technology, for example, in a transit organization that is, okay, it's good, but it's expensive or is complicated to implement, or imagine, for example, MTA has more than 20,000 bus stops. Los Angeles Metro has 20,000 bus stops. Texas, VIA, the Sound Transit, all the transit agencies in the USA has a lot of bus stops. If you make something simple, that is as simple as add a code in the current signage, and at this moment you make this more accessible for the users and can be implemented very quickly, okay? This is something that can be implemented in the real world. If you have something that is complicated or is in electronics or is expensive or is very slow to deploy, maybe it could be interesting, but the problem is that never will be implemented everywhere. And for the visually impaired community, the users don't need to be in one particular space or one particular bus stop, one street or something like that. It's required to have a more inclusive world, a world where accessibility will not be an option, will be a right.
That's awesome.
Is our thought. And this is why we are working so hard from 2012 in this project. And we are putting all our effort, all our energy, all our passion in order to make it possible. And of course, and this is very important, for us, the community is the most important. So it's our driven. Our mission is to help the community, to help the users. So if any user can have any idea, any comment, any critics, anything, okay, any user can write us directly in order to share with us any thought that is possible to have, because we are here to improve the technology. We are here in order to imagine new use cases and in order to make more easy for the users. And another thing that is very important, NaviLens technology is always free for the users. It not make sense that the user pay anything, okay? In the examples that we are talking about this interview, imagine, for example, a sighted user, they use a bus stop and imagine to pay in order to access to the information to the bus stop signage or to pay to access to the signage of the subway station. No. They pay that with the ticket. This technology must be paid by the owner of the space, never by the users. Okay, that is very, very important for us as well.
Equal access to the signage, right?
Yes, equal access to the signage. And indeed, this is another question that is important to focus. This technology was born to offer something very good for the users, okay? For the blind users specifically. But the same codes are helping the sighted users as well, because we are reading the information in English. But if I have a mobile in Spanish, or I have a mobile phone in French, or in German, or in Chinese, or in Japanese, or any other language in the world, I'm going to obtain this information in my own language. If I am Japanese and I don't understand or I can read English, I have an accessible issue with that. So the same codes can help the sighted users. And the same codes can help the users in order to navigate the wayfinding indoors, in a subway station or hospital, with augmented reality experience instead of sounds of the drums and the bells with arrows. And using that, okay, we can make a more accessible world. Indeed, one example. In my screen, I have a picture inside a German train. Okay, it's talking about in German something like helfen Sie mit die, something like that. Okay, I don't speak German. I suppose that it's talking something about coronavirus. Okay, first, this information at the wagon is invisible for the blind. Invisible. It's not possible to access to this information. Secondly, if I travel to German and I get inside this wagon and I read this information, I don't understand German. I don't understand what it's saying. If I scan this NaviLens code here with the NaviLens app, I'm going to obtain this.
Help stop the spread of the coronavirus. 1. Wash your hands regularly for at least 20 seconds. 2. When coughing and sneezing, cover your mouth and...
Okay, and this information was not wrote in English. It was wrote in German. And thanks to the incredible magic of Google Translate, okay, we can translate to any language in the world for all the users. And if a user uses NaviLens Go, they can have access to the same information, but in a visual format. Okay, that is incredible. And if I pick up my Japanese mobile phone, that is not other than having the mobile phone in Japanese, if I read the information of the bus stop in Manhattan, okay, I will obtain this.
4メートル先、5メートル先、バス停イースト23ストリートブロードウェイ。
I'm sure, Pita and Jeff, that you speak Japanese, right?
Oh, sure.
The point is that when you see a signage in Japanese, if you go to Tokyo and sighted people see a signage in Japanese, they are not going to understand a thing. The NaviLens technology at the same time help the sighted people to achieve the destination or to understand the signage. Okay, so that is the point. The same codes that are in Manhattan don't only help the visually impaired. That is our first goal. is helping all the users, including, for example, giving contextual information about, for example, the status of the elevators. Okay, that is very important for people in wheelchair, delivering the Wayfinding information, okay, between all the stations, and having a digital panel in each code around the station, okay? So the point is, our dream will be, why not as simple as to add in the NaviLens code and all the signage, why don't create an equal world for everybody?
Simplicity.
And this is our mission.
Right.
Simplicity. Yes.
Javier, one more question about the NaviLens 360 vision. Do you have the potential to replace the drum and bell sounds with speech, where it would be actually telling you turn right, turn left, or go to your 10 o'clock or your 4 o'clock or something along those lines?
Yes, of course. And indeed, for example, if I, very quickly, for example, read the same code, one moment, I'm going to read with NaviLens R. One moment.
Activating 360 vision. Lock code. 3
Okay.
meters away.
Could you have?
On your 9, 3 meters away.
Okay.
On your 7, 3 meters away. Bus
Okay.
stop.
The answer is yes.
Question. You said you had a professional package, which would, of course, be for your merchants and stores and things like that. Do you have a price listing on your website for how much those packages would cost? And are they affordable? That's a key question for participation from the professional community.
The pre-recorded codes, the kits, are completely free, okay? Our first mission is to help and support the visually impaired community, okay? Obviously, we can make this sustainable, and in order to pay the engineers all the effort and all the new things that we are adding to the technology, we need to make sustainable, of course, okay? But the thing is, all the kits that you can access at free.navilens.com, the school kits and the association kits are free. And the point is, the business model is the owner of the facilities, the managers. We have begun in transit organization because mobility is so essential for the visually impaired community. Later with another use cases like museums. Museums is an incredible use case in order to make more accessible and at the same time make accessible the information for all the visitors in 33 languages, having the visual information, multimedia information, sign language information, a lot of information, okay, and using an NaviLens code. And depending on the use case and the volume, the price is one of another. We recommend that any owner or manager of this kind of space contact us. And of course, it's affordable and precisely when the owner of the space want to make all the space accessible. So I recommend that the managers or this kind of organization contact us. And of course, it's very affordable and it's very easy to be implemented as well.
Great.
That's great. You know, I can really hear your passion on what you're working on, what you're doing for the blindness community. I think it's really great. And, you know, if anybody has any questions, they can find NaviLens on Twitter as NaviLens. That's NaviLens. And on the web at www.navilens.com. I was intrigued. I downloaded the app. It's easy to do. You check a box that says you agree that it's not a navigational device. It's not this, that, the other thing. And then you open it up and it's real simple. Big tabs at the bottom. You just touch them. And I was able to print off, I think it was 4 of them on one sheet of paper within a matter of a minute, and I'm off and running. Hopefully we get a lot of companies that want to implement access to everyone, be inclusive, and I think this is a great way to get information right into your phone for you to make decisions on from the data that you receive just by triggering the NaviLens code. So great job.
Thank you so much.
Well, Javier Pita, CEO and founder of NaviLens Corporation, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and you have gotten Jeff and I very excited about your product.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having these kind words from you. And again, our dream is that this could help a little more, whatever, but help. That is our mission. And please, if you or any user can have any comment, any doubt, any suggestion, please contact us. Our mission is to help to make more of the technology for the users. So please don't hesitate to contact us. And thank you so much for the time you have spent with me and in order to hear my not very good pronunciation in English. Thank you so much.
Jeff and I want to thank Javier Pita for joining us on Blind Abilities today. Be sure to check out the NaviLens information on their website. That's www.navilens.com. That's spelled NaviLens.com. And we encourage you to go in there and download your NaviLens tags for home use and begin to advocate around your town for various commercial enterprises, schools, governmental units, transportation agencies, and other similar organizations opportunities to explore the potential of the Navi lens. And from all of us here at Blind Abilities, through these challenging times, to you, your family, and friends, stay well, stay informed, and stay strong. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations
and the
realities
of blind abilities. The realities of blind abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.